Okay, so you're thinking about either starting or upgrading your YouTube setup. Well, the good news is you don't need a huge budget or a dedicated studio to get a pro-level look for your talking head videos. The truth is, most people overcomplicate this, or they waste money in the wrong areas while kind of overlooking the basics that actually make them sound and look great. Now again, it doesn't need to be some over-the-top setup, but the harsh reality is if it looks a little bit amateurish, people click away. But if you just nail a couple of key things, you may very well earn just a few more seconds of their time, and that could be the difference maker between whether or not they stay for your video or not. So guys, in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can create a totally pro look for your talking head videos in 2025. And I'm gonna share the exact gear that I use to pull off this look, but I'm also gonna offer some alternatives so that you can create a really great looking talking head setup regardless of your budget. So no excuses. Let's get into it. So why talking head videos and why do they matter? Well, obviously there are lots of different styles of content, and honestly I'd love to talk about different styles of content creation on this channel. We'll get to those at a later date, but I wanted to start by talking about talking head content simply because it's a great way to connect to the audience on the other side. If you're just getting started, it's really important to get comfortable talking to a camera, and even if you've been doing YouTube for a while, trust me, it almost feels like you never really get good at this. Talking to a camera is a little bit weird, but honestly, talking head is a great way to share some of your insights. It's a great way to sort of teach some of your perspective that I think anybody can really add some value if they really dig into their perspective that might be unique to others. Okay, so here's how I want to lay out this video. I want to take each section and sort of break it down by category. Now, everything that I share in this video, I'm going to put together a comprehensive list and link it down below. So those will be a collection of affiliate links. So if you decide to pick something up, just know that I may earn a small commission at no additional cost to you, but it's a great way to support the channel and I certainly appreciate it. Okay, so let's just get the first one out of the way because this is going to be the most obvious. The thing that's going to make the biggest difference in your talking head videos is going to be your camera setup. So regardless of what camera you're using, I definitely recommend for talking head videos that you have a static shot that is stabilized by some sort of tripod. Now I've got a pretty traditional tripod here and I'll put it on the screen right now so that you can see that. It is a relatively obscure brand that unfortunately has been discontinued, so I'm gonna put a couple of alternatives that are pretty comparable in the list below, but what you can get away with is honestly a pretty inexpensive stand that you can find on Amazon. I mean, I've got several of these Ulanzi selfie stick tripods that I use when I'm out and about making content, and those would work just fine. So don't overthink this. You can totally get away with a $30 tripod in the early stages until you can afford to get something maybe a little more sturdy. Now, let's talk about what we're putting on that tripod. The camera. I mean, obviously that's going to be one of the most important parts of your videos. What I'm currently using is a Sony ZV-E10 Mark I. And yes, Sony has put out a Mark II since I purchased this one, and yeah, there's definitely a couple of upgrades, but I chose not to upgrade to that camera because frankly, this camera looks pretty incredible. I think it's still very much a camera that's going to pull off some quality videos that will compete with anything in the marketplace for kind of a long time. And hear me when I say this, I'll probably say this a lot on this channel, when you invest in a camera, you don't always need the newest one. I know it's always tempting, but your camera's probably fine for a few more years. But yeah, you can get the Sony ZV-E10 Mark I for a relatively affordable price still, and I definitely still highly recommend this camera. Now, as far as the glass that I'm putting on this camera, well, I'm using a lens that a lot of people use for this camera, and for good reason. It's the Sigma f1.4 16mm lens. It's got a nice wide field of view, but it's also got a really nice depth of field, so you're gonna get a little bit of that bokeh blur behind you, which I think is a great look for talking head videos. In fact, I would bet there's a ton of talking head videos you watch on a regular basis that are shot through this exact lens. But if you don't have the budget for a nice mirrorless camera right now, honestly, no big deal, because all of us have a phone in our pocket that's likely got better video than cameras did 10 years ago, or maybe even 5 years ago. So trust me, that phone that you have in your pocket, even if it's a few years old, is gonna be perfectly sufficient to get a good looking talking head video. And again, today, no excuses. All right, now that we've nailed the camera, the next biggest driver of whether or not your video is gonna look great or not is definitely gonna be the lighting. Now, in this particular category of lighting, I'm gonna be talking specifically about the subject lighting, or in a talking head video, the subject is you. So it's probably pretty evident why it's important that you, as the speaker, really need to be well lit in your video because you are the focal point. And you definitely want to avoid being backlit without anything lighting you from the front because you're just going to look dark and ominous and it's going to be kind of distracting, honestly. What I'm using is a light from a company called Great Video Maker, or GVM. So this is a softbox that is an 80-watt light, and it comes with a kit with the tripod stand. So for that, I think it's actually a pretty great value. Now, I personally prefer to use a honeycomb grid on the front. When it comes to a key light, the entire purpose of it is to light you. And truthfully, what you want to avoid is a lot of what's called spill, or light sort of flooding the room outside of the focal point, which is really, designed to be you. So that's where the honeycomb grid really comes into play, kind of focuses straightforward on you, which gives you way more control of all of the sort of accent lighting that occurs in the back. And for me, the more control I have over the variables in the room, the better. Now, this particular light, it is set at a static 5600 Kelvin, which is the same temperature as daylight. So for my Sony ZV-E10, it's just always set in here at 5600 Kelvin. If you are using an adjustable temperature light, you want to make sure that you're setting that temperature at the same temperature setting as the white balance of your camera. Otherwise, skin tones and everything in the video is going to start to look a little bit off. Now, if you're just using your phone, as I recommended in the first section, just make sure that you have selected a temperature that can match the lighting, and I would just manually select that white balance rather than let it be an auto, because you don't want it to kind of fluctuate all over the place. It's going to make things look funny if you have to make any cuts, so you just want it to be at a static temperature that matches the temperature of your lighting. Now, quick tip, if you're somebody like me who has glasses, it's going to be difficult to have the light coming straight onto your face, so I have it sort of pitched at an angle, right about a 45-degree angle here, and that allows for the reflection, for the most part, to be largely out of the reflections in my lens. Now, if you don't wear glasses, you can kind of make a choice as to what direction or angle you want to put the light at, but personally, I kind of like that look regardless of glasses. You kind of have the light coming in at an angle, which makes part of your face and body a little bit darker, and then I've got a little bit of an accent light coming from this direction, which we'll talk about here in an upcoming section. Now, for budget-friendly options, you can absolutely get away with using just your standard ring lights. When I started my first YouTube channel, I honestly used a ring light for about a year and a half, and nobody ever said, hey, what's wrong with your videos? As long as you're using the lighting correctly, the most important thing is that you're well lit in your videos. If all else fails and you're really tight on your budget right now, you can always just use a window. So you're just going to want to make sure that you set up in a way that is facing a window, and of course you're going to be kind of restricted to shooting during the day. All right, now let's talk about something that a lot of people argue is actually the most important part of your video, and that is audio. So what I'm using here in this talking head setup is actually a combination of a couple things. So I've got this Shure lapel mic, but I'm actually running it through the DJI Mic 1 system. So if you see here, obviously it is missing a mic because that mic is in my pocket, and the lapel mic just has a cable running down to it. And that mic or transmitter is then just sending that signal directly to the receiver that is currently on the top of the camera. Now, I could just use the DJI Mic 1 system on its own and just use the transmitter as the mic, and honestly, I did that for a while. But once you start to accumulate some gear, you start to have some preferences, and I just like the way this mic sounds. So whatever it is, just make sure that it's a good sounding mic. A wireless mic setup is honestly all you really need. All of these options in the marketplace right now sound actually pretty excellent. You've got your Rode, your Hollyland has a couple of options. You've got the DJI Mic 2. You've got the DJI Mic Mini. You could even use a shotgun style mic that you mount on the top of your camera. There are some options that you can get for probably like in the $50 to $60 range. The only recommendation I would make if you're gonna use a shotgun mic is to make sure that your camera setup is close enough to you that your mouth isn't too far away from the mic. Whatever the case may be, just make sure you use a mic that sounds nice and clear and crisp, because audio is such a huge part of what keeps people interested in your video. Wrapping up audio, definitely something I wanna mention is acoustics. You might notice sometimes when you filmed videos, you're in a room that's maybe got wood paneling or hardwood floors, and it just sounds kind of echoey. Now, this is definitely something that is, if within your control, I would maybe try to get in a room that has some curtains or even a room with some carpet. Now, I'm not saying you need to treat the room with some really expensive studio foam or anything. What I did is I put some blackout curtains across these windows. I'll put these on the screen right now so you can take a look at that. But those are really great at not only blocking out all the light, but they're also really good at deadening the sound. So everything in here is really dry. I know I'm going to get the same sound every time I record in here. So again, just kind of work with what you got, but maybe just keep that in mind when you're selecting a space in your home to record videos. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the aesthetics of the room. This is going to be a little bit subjective as to whatever your tastes are or what kind of your vibe is, but here are a couple of recommendations. For me, an easy go-to is definitely having some sort of table or desk. Now, I personally like that because the style of content that I deliver kind of requires me to do a little bit of showing. So if I need to lower the camera a little bit to show a little more real estate estate here on the table, then it allows me to sort of do some illustrations here or kind of show a little bit better with the table in front of me. It also just gives me somewhere to put my hands and arms. I'm a little bit of a gesticulator, as you may have noticed. That's really up to you. Maybe you just want to sit in a nice comfy chair. Now, of course, you can do a talking head video and just stand, and that's perfectly fine. I just recommend that you sit kind of in one place simply because it's going to be a little bit easier in the edits if you have to make cuts. So if you want to do a standing video, hey, listen, totally fine. I would just recommend that you're kind of close enough and you're cropped in a way that the framing feels kind of natural. You don't want to be doing one of those videos where you're kind of far enough away from the camera where it almost looks like it's some sort of criminal lineup. Not a good look. Now, as far as the framing, well, you can be perfectly centered. Some people like to split it up with the rule of thirds. They'll be a little bit off center in a way that's a little more artistic. So you can kind of explore that if you want. What I would recommend is just get yourself a nice setup that's gonna be comfy because you may be sitting there a little while, especially in the beginning, but that's gonna be totally up to you. Okay, so the next category is something that I have a lot of fun with, and that is sort of the background accent lighting and decor. So once again, this is kind of gonna be one of those sort of subjective things to taste, but I definitely recommend putting a few things, kind of select pieces behind you that ideally show a little bit of your personality. A bonus is if you'd like to get maybe a secondary table. I recommend that it's at a different level, usually a little bit higher than the front one, so that there's kind of some depth or dimension that's added to the frame. Now, something you may not know about me, but I live in Oklahoma City, so I have a little license plate I had made that says OKC made. To my right, your left, I've got the cutout of the state of Oklahoma, and these are just fun little pieces of decor. Now, keynote here, you don't want to make it too busy, and you also want to make sure that there's a little bit of distance between you and the wall. So you don't want to be just backed up right on top of these things because it's not going to add the depth that you're going for. So I'll put on screen just kind of an approximation of how far I am currently sitting from the wall to give you kind of an idea when you're putting your studio together. Now, additionally to that, I like having a little bit of plants back there to give it a little bit of life. A little bit of green never hurts. And as you can probably tell, I like some colored accent lighting. And this goes back to why I'm so fond of using a key light that has a honeycomb grid on the front. It really ensures that the key light is coming directly on me and it gives me really full control of the lighting that I can do behind me. So as far as the colored accent lighting that I have behind me, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But one of the things I really like using, honestly in a variety of settings, are these little Ulanzi RGB lights. They can be used as just a regular white light with varying temperatures, or they're a full RGB light. They're great, and even though they're really tiny, honestly, these things are pretty powerful. Sometimes I may use that in a talking head setup as an accent colored light. Sometimes I may use that like I do currently behind me. If you see that license plate or the state of Oklahoma, it's currently just got a little bit of an accent light on it. One of the things that I really enjoy using is what's called a hair light. Now, spoiler alert, I don't have hair. But the purpose of a hair light is to sort of give you a little bit of a glow or outline on sort of the top of your head. And for those of you who have hair. So what I'm using is a light by a brand called Evizi, and it's a full RGB light. And I just put it at an angle that kind of faces exactly sort of the opposite of the direction of the key light. And that's why you see just a little bit of a subtle blue outline on this side of me, which I think helps me sort of pop out in the video. And it helps just give this sort of a more creative look. And then I've got another one of those Evizi lights sitting right behind me that's facing the wall that gives me sort of that kind of violet pinkish behind me that I think really helps me pop as well. All right, now the unconventional colored lighting I have back here, as of recently anyway, are actually not meant to be studio lights at all. And off the top of my head, I can't even remember what the brand name is, but I'm pretty sure these are meant to be outdoor floodlights, maybe for holidays because they've got different color variations. But rather than being a chargeable battery light, these are just, you plug them in, and I've just got them sitting there static. They've got a little remote with them. So again, I'll put a link in the description, but they've got red, green, blue, and some variations of those colors and some different temperature white lights as well. I think they've been great. That's what's giving me sort of the blue at the top angles of the shot, which kind of matches the blue that comes down the side of me here. And of course, I've got just this lamp over here that I think is a great little accent as well. You notice I got a candle to the left of me. You could really just get away with a lamp and a candle. The thing is, just be creative. Hey, listen, at the end of the day, we are creators, and all of you are probably making videos because you have some creative spirit about you. As long as you're really following along with some of the fundamentals that we spoke about today, I am confident that you're gonna get a great looking talking head studio shot. But guys, like I said, talking head videos are really just one style of content, and maybe you have other styles you prefer. For instance, maybe you like vlogging. And if vlogging is more your jam, then maybe you're more interested in learning about using cameras like the DJI Pocket 3. If you'd like to hear about some of my favorite accessories for the Pocket 3, you definitely want to check out this video right here. And guys, until next time, go make something rad. All right, see ya.